Excellent. I think I've gone live just a minute or so early. I'm just going to wait for all of the systems to catch up with itself so I can see what's going on, because it always takes a little bit of time for them to link. That's happened quicker than it often does tonight. That's brilliant. Let me just make sure I've got no sound on there. And I can click that onto there. And I can just share that onto my own page. There we are. Lovely. So it's telling me I've got at least 2 or 3 people joining me. If someone who's watching, hello Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Hi Joan, hi Lynn, good evening Zuri, hi Jan. Could one of you just let me know that you can see everything without a problem, and also that you can hear me without a problem? Good evening Imrene, I think that's probably how I say your name. I apologise if it's not. Hello Elizabeth, welcome, welcome. We are just, thank you Elizabeth, that's lovely. Thank you Lynn, brilliant Joan, thank you so very much. The problem is I switch everything off so we don't get a double echo when I'm filming, which means I can't then hear what's going on, which is always cool, I think. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. Lovely. Hi, Crafty Jacks. Well, we can't all do everything, can we? That is a little bit of a headache. So welcome to my second Pentart Live for this month. Valentine's Day was yesterday, so I hope that everyone had a fabulous time and they got some nice gifts. And maybe someone got a surprise and got engaged. I don't know. I've been married for over 30 years, so that's definitely not part of my agenda at the moment. So good evening, Sabine. Welcome, welcome. So I thought, as we're now past Valentine, but we're a little bit early for Easter, I would do a springtime sort of themed project. And so I have an MDF base. You could pick them up wherever you live. I suspect you'll each have something or a variant of this. And I've got some little words that are also from MDF, but you could choose a sentiment that worked for you. So my MDF comes in 2 parts, which is cool. Hello, Renee. Welcome, welcome. And I have a beautiful piece of paper. This is from the Stamperia Precious Collection. Hello, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So we're going to do a little bit of mixed media. We're doing a bit of painting. We've got my inevitable large number of moulds. So we've got a bit of rinse and repeat. Let me just tuck these out of harm's way. And there we are. So we are going to be using a crackle paint system. You didn't get anything for Valentine's Day. I'm sorry, she says. She says, looking at that paint, which she should have clearly checked before she went live, because it looks a little bit dried up. But it's water-based paint. So these are chalky-based acrylics. So they are great. It means that when they get thick from having been left out in the summer in my lovely Bourne Conservatory, I can I can let them down and reconstitute them quite nicely, and you can see that that's still quite thick. So we're going to add an undercoat to here. Let me just grab a baby wipe, because we don't want that there. I apologise if it gets a little bit noisy, because it's a bit rainy today, or the rain has started, actually, having had quite a nice day to things. So we're just going to add a layer to the base of this. I'm not overtly worried about priming it all. We're going to get the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, as we know. I tend to like a shabby chic effect, so that's not a problem. We might add just a squidge of water onto the MDF, onto here, because that will help make that spread quicker. And rather than using that little brush, let's just move to something that's a bit bigger, and then we can get this covered in with a bit more efficiency than with a tiny brush, because otherwise we might just be here till the cows come home, which would be an interesting concept, but not one that I'm wanting. I'm not worried if I get stuff underneath the back of this today, because I'm going to be covering the other side anyway. We just need to get a layer down and get the edges reasonably covered. Again, we can add some wax, and we're going to be layering these up. So is this sort of brown, which is called vintage brown, a spring colour? Perhaps not, but it's definitely a softer brown, on the shabbier end of the spectrum than a lot of browns would be. So that's why I've chosen that. Good evening, Alison. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You're very welcome. So what's going on? There we are. So let's just add a layer of this, and we can give it a little bit of a spritz dry, well, air dry, because we need to get another layer onto here. There we are. Let's just, now, if I wasn't on a live, I would probably spend ages going around each and every layer of this, making sure I got the inside and outside and all of the brown bits. But we're going to just do our best tonight around here. Good evening, Liz. Welcome. Welcome. It's lovely to see people watching what's going on. There we are. And then we can give this, we'll take this off and make sure we've got a reasonable covering. We're going to be adding a layer to it, so that's less of a problem. That can go into there. Hello, Marisol. Welcome. Let's just give this a little bit of a tidy up, because it's going to be far easier for you to see what I'm doing if things are at least vaguely clean. And actually, it's not nice working in a mess, is it? So let's just give this all a little white. Hope that we won't end up with too sticky and mucky fingers tonight. Good evening, Lorraine. Hello, Isabella. Thank you very much for joining us all this evening. So there we are. Cool. So that is layer one of those on, and we're going to give it a little bit. She says throwing up brushes around. Well, that's always good. Not, she says. Let's just give this a wee wash dry. Sarah, you've got a face pack on and says which is yummy. So that will be a lovely, refreshing face mask, Sarah. Hello, Paulette from Indiana. What ungodly hour of the morning is it for you? I know for those on the Californian side of the country, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, which is pretty early for my friends over there to be joining me. It's always appreciated when only actually people do. There just isn't a time for a live that will work for everyone all of the time, is there? No matter where we are, particularly when you're working with a company that has an international customer base and products that are universally usable. So let's just give this a good root dry, because I need to add a primer, a packing primer, and that will also need some time to dry. So there we are. We'll just give this a little bit. That is the only headache with life, isn't it? It is that we have the drying time, but also it does show that doing a project from end to end is sometimes quite helpful. I think I love lots of the reels and the mini videos, but you don't really have very long to check what is actually being done, as things whiz by in seconds. So of course they have their place, as with all forms of social media interacting, when it comes to spreading the news about the product. I'm glad it does, Sarah. I'm glad it does. So we've got a good number of people on. Lots of you, I think, are from the UK. I think we've got maybe from Hungary, possibly from Poland, and definitely from the US. So it's lovely to have such an international viewing group. So let's just get this dry. There's no point in me trying to really, well, I can speed it up with my heat gun, but I can't, this isn't going to matter hugely if it gets, isn't completely dry, but I do need it to be not shiny and not wet. So, I don't know, ladies, do you like this current layout that's on StreamYard? I think it gives you the chance to see who the creator is, but also to have a good sized view of what is being made. If you would prefer not to have my ugly mugshot on screen all of the time, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do about it. I'm not guaranteed, but there are some other settings, so I can take my image out of it if that's what you want, and I can put it in and out as we want to, for joy. There we are. But I think that this imagery gives you quite a nice view of what's going on and what's the extraneous clutter that happens to be on my desk at the moment. Now then, we want a not such a good brush, because I'm going to add, so this was a chalky paint, so I'm now going to use the Pentacolor cracking paint system. You could use the one component crackle. The effect will be different, but it will still give you a crackle that, and will still have give you a beautiful looking project. So don't we know we like seeing your face. Yeah, I did have my hair done. My lovely daughter took offence to my grey hair last night when she was doing hers, and as I always have, this a hair dye in the cupboard. She put it on for me, which is very helpful, really, isn't it? There we are. So we will just cover this. So this one's going to be the back. We've got a different plan for the front. We will need to add a bit of paint to the front at the top. The mugshot's fine. Thank you very much. It depends really on how big a view you want of the of the crafting. Really, I think it's I think when I'm watching a live, I like to have a good view of the project, because I think that, particularly if you're watching on a smaller device, if you only have a tiny view on the computer, it becomes almost impossible to see what's going on a on a phone or a standard camera phone screen. I tend to watch my lives on a computer, because I have a big screen. And of course, you can probably put them on your TV, can't you? That technology is probably a bit beyond my ability to set that up. So I'm going to add some crackles to this. I'm not necessarily going to have it everywhere, and that's fine. Just because you're using a medium doesn't mean it has to cover everything, so that it's cool. We'll have some of it crackled, some of it not. So it looks appropriately distressed. There we are. So that will do for there. That will do for that. There we are. So that is primed. So let me just pop her. Hi, Jill. And where have you gone out to tea? I think Tom and Jenny, they are my... Ah, there we are. Find the lid. I've gone out on a date night. That's being so, Christina, this is cracking paint system 1, and it goes with the cracking paint system 2, and this comes in pre-colored paste. So there's a brown, cream, pink, green, black. I think there's lots of them. So it's but any priming, any of your Pentacolor crackle systems will want. So it's just a primer for the painting system. If you've got the Pentart Universal Primer, then the clue's in the name, isn't it? Use the Universal Primer, but it's not, there we are, that can go on to ground floor, level 1 drying a la Mr. Minutes, because that's going to sit now in front of a little fan heater that's going there, and the primer goes on white and will become transparent as it dries. So the eagle-eyed will have spotted that I have a collection of molds or pre-molded pieces. So let me just separate them out and point out some of the headaches, because there are some headaches here. So these florals all come from, I think, the Blue Line collection from Stamperia. It's a nice mould. It's one of the silicone molds, so it's more expensive. And I struggled to get these out of the mould hole. So my advice would be to move them when they are flexible, because that would help with getting them out. And it may just be that it was actually the first time I'd used the mould and the mould was a little stiff. So those are all from Stamperia. Then I have 2 little cute bunnies, and these are from a Prima mould, as is this one with the little birdies and flowers that are very similar. So, and as I usually do, have coated them all, because they're plastic and non-porous surface, and that's difficult to hold paint to. I have already primed these with bonding primer, and I have left this to dry so naturally, and ideally you leave them for at least 12 hours, possibly 24 hours before doing that. But that has now, she says, been left to dry, so hopefully that will make life easier for everyone. And then I have picked some of my favorite colors. So I have Thorn. Actually, let's do it the opposite way around, just to be difficult. So let us give our little flowers. I could have gone for pale blues, forget-me-nots, and we might actually have a little bit of a mix. Good evening, Annie. So this one is Victorian Pink. It is a Deco Paint soft chalky, and this one needs a stir, and this is Morning Glory. So I think those two will work quite nicely. So let me just give that a wee bit of a stir, because the acrylic binding medium for when pots are left stationary can separate out. These are very thick paints, and you say it was a brand new pot. There we are. And perhaps not one of my very go-to colours, but hey ho. So rather than wasting what's on there, we will just we'll pop out a little bit of the pink, and we've got some of the blue on there, and this hopefully will mean that we can mix between the two without having to worry too greatly. And I'm going to pick up the floral elements first, and I've got a nice small brush to get into these details. So bear with while we just have to get on and paint a lot of flowers, because why not? And I've got some ivory for the centre and some waxes. So as I say, I don't particularly want these all to look the same, and I can, by mixing this blue and the pink, I'm going to get some areas that are blue and some areas where the paint's mixed that are going to be a pretty purple shade, and that's going to help with pulling stuff together, I think. And I can go over the top of that. So we might be here just a little while this evening. with me painting flowers, but hey ho, that's just part of life. But we will get there, and we'll add some details. There we are. And I'll mix these in so we've got some different tones and shades, because in the UK, forget-me-nots are not all a single colour, are they? They are often a mixture of colours. And there's a leaf in there, so we'll pop that into, ignore that bit, and we'll just colour these. And so we might be here just a little bit while we're doing this. Hello, Annie. Welcome from Greece. I trust all is well out on the islands, and you're not too cold, and it's not, and the weather is being kind to you, because that's what we want, isn't it? The weather to be kind. So you say there's lots of detail on these, and I'm semi-stabilizing my finger on the mold, but I'm not stressing too hugely about it, because one of the joys of antiquing mediums, which I've got white out, is that actually they cover a multitude of sins, don't they? So that will help when we're doing this. So I'm aiming for a pretty piece today rather than an overtly grungy piece. The only bit of brown that I'm using, as I say, was that soft vintage brown, and that is very much intended to be in the background of the crackles rather than full on. So there we are. So this is good. We will just, I'm hoping that by the time we go around one layer, we can then add the next layer, and without too much cross-contamination, we'll be able to add the different colours, different layers, and touching up. And obviously, if you're at home, just spend your time. Crafting should be enjoyed. And yeah, I do love doing this. And would it take me a lot longer? Yeah, if I wasn't doing it on a live, the answer is surely yes. I would play around a little bit longer. But these techniques of these colour blending work quite well when it comes to doing these, and they're looking pretty. Thank you, Christina. My accent is combination of well, I was brought up in Kent, so but I don't have really have a particularly London accent. And then at 18, I moved to Manchester to medical school, and so I do sometimes have a Mancunian twang, but definitely not a full-on Mancunian twang. So Annie, what didn't you know, my darling? I've lost track of where you made that comment in amongst my ramblings. There we are. Because if you didn't know, then it's probably a point worth knowing. So the lovely Annie has a shop called Crafting Moods in Greece, and she does regular lives. She uses lots of different products. So yeah, it's good to share the love for our fellow crafters. So perhaps you might want to have a little look at Crafting Moods. I think she's got a live this weekend, and and it's good to see different styles. They've also been called dementia flowers. Okay, it's definitely. Is that, yeah, I suppose forget-me-not would fit with dementia flowers. In the UK, they're definitely not called dementia flowers. They're definitely called forget-me-nots. I wonder where the term dementia flowers came from. I wonder where the term forget-me-nots came from as well, because that's not... they're a very pretty little flower. And I love them. Hi, Anna. Welcome, my darling. So we've just got those. So this particular mold from Stamperia has got lots of little elements in it, and it's got ones. For this particular mold, they have sided them, By that I mean that you have left and right orientations of the focals, and that makes it easy to build a symmetrical frame. So when you're looking to buy a mold, it's worth perhaps thinking about what you're doing, and whether you're going to just be placing them, or whether you might want to build a symmetrical frame. And if you are wanting to build a symmetrical frame, then look for molds that have this right and left-handed versions of products, of the iconography, because your life will be much easier if you do that. Lovely. Good. Thank you, Annie. Thank you. Let me just carry on happily painting these. I don't want to be here for silly hours this evening, but we might. We'll poodle our way quite happily, because, well, I guess the answer is that collage style pieces with lots of layering is the style that I am perhaps the most well known for in amongst it all. So, and I just give my brush a wipe because I was getting too many purple tones, and that's because I am mixing, and I have deliberately been quite good this evening, and I have offloaded my paints rather than dunking my brush into my big pots, because I don't particularly want to have them contaminated. And much as the purple is a very pretty colour, it's good husbandry to not do that. So there we are. I'll have that. Or we might need a little clean of this brush again, because we've got a nice purple tone there. It's a very pretty. Thank you. I hadn't realised that, but it's an appropriate term, isn't it? Because we call it forget-me-nots, and of course people with dementia forget. So it would be logical that it would become the symbol, just like the daffodil. It's a sign of Marie Curie, isn't it? And yeah, cool. You learn something new every day. So Annie, this particular mold is a silicone mold, and it was released before Christmas. I think it might have been their December release. I think it came out at the same time as Precious and Blue Land came out, and because it's a silicone mold, I think it's quite a use. It's quite robust. They're relatively expensive by Stamperia standards. They are relatively expensive, but because they are silicone molds, they're likely to last you, I think, a lot longer. And it's a very, very, definitely a very, very pretty mold set. So it's worth, I think it was worth it. And I think it's a mold that you could use for lots of different seasons, just by picking up, using the different elements as you go, or just by changing the colour of that you're choosing to work with. So that's why. And I just felt that the little flowers would be appropriate for a spring-related piece. And then I had a little look through my stash as to what else I had, and had a good time playing, really, gathering all my supplies together, because that's part of it, isn't it? Now, on this bird mold, which has got lots and lots and lots of detail, there are some flowers in the centre. So let's just add a little bit onto them, so that these link all together. There we are. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. So that, yeah, so that's the first one. And We'll just make sure we've got done reasonably well, but the antique ink paste will help cover some of this. There we go. Cool. Right. So let's just mop this up. It's lovely to see so many people online with me this evening. There we are. Let's just have a little mop. Get rid of that. Get rid of the muckiness. Otherwise we will have stuff every which way. There we are. We'll not put that onto there. Cool. So let's just lid this. So as I say, this is Victorian Pink, which is a Decor Paint Soft Chalky, and Morning Glory. And by colour mixing them, I've got some soft tones, which is what I was wanting to do for. So those can go out of the way. So let's go from there. So where was that? There's that brown paint, because why not? Yeah. So that was just, actually we're going to do that. We'll do the rabbit. We might add some pink at some stage to the Monsieur the Rabbit. So Annie, these are from I don't know whether I'm meant to have them. I'm not too sure whether the shop that I bought them from should have actually sold. Anyway, because it's technically only releasing, I think, today. But it's a lovely set of molds, and these are left and right-handed, which means I can make myself a 3D bunny, which comes back to my original comment about the Stamperia mold and looking for, yeah, particularly when if you're wanting to do things, looking for elements that are where the molds have both left and right orientations, because it adds to the versatility. Because you can guarantee, or I can certainly guarantee, if it's only available in one direction, that will be the direction I don't want it to be on my project, because that's just what happens, isn't it? Yeah, that is just what happens. There we are. So we're not going for complex, because why do complex and difficult? Because life is too short, but we will have a pretty and effective project by the time we've added in the details. It's amazing what you can do with a black pen when it comes to adding details, like the eyes and the whiskers and the nose in for the rabbits. And as I say, we'll add some pink into the inside of that, and we might add a little bit of white. Well, we will be adding some white, there's no question about that. We will definitely be adding some whites into things. So has anyone got any questions they want to ask about the project so far, or about Pentart products in general? Please feel free, and if I can answer, I will do my best to do so. I appreciate that waiting for painting that's very similar might not be what everyone wants to do. Good evening, Karen. Welcome to the live stream this evening. So this is my words. So there we are. Let's just add a bit of paint onto these. Won't stay that colour, but that's okay. We'll be adding some extra bits to it. And of course, although these are MDF, you could just as easily use a dye and then multi-layer the elements to give them some depth and some solidity, or you could use some of the beer mat boards from Stamperia. They will work equally well. Just don't oversaturate the beer mat with wet mediums, because it has a habit of going soggy, which is a look, but perhaps not the best one. Sorry, ladies, about that. Hang on a minute, she says. Right, we do now need. Thank you. As I say, that's just a vintage a vintage brown. So we're going to add that to the birds, so we can link these together. But we will be adding extra colours with waxes, and I'm keeping away from the typical bluebird, because actually I don't normally see those in the UK in the spring. They are normally found in my garden, actually, more towards the summer. So let's just pop some of that down into there. So, get the edges. There we are. Cool. And the details will be brought out with lots of dry brushing. Details later on. So there we are. There we are. Cool. Let's just make sure we've got the edges reasonably well covered. Excellent. So that can sit over there. She says I can see an area there that I've just been handling, so I'll pop that into there. Right. So we have lots of leaves and fronds, so let me just pop out. So this is my one of my favourite greens. This is called Thorn, and there is an acrylic matte in Thorn as well as the Decor Paint Soft Chalky. And I have also got out, she says, crikey Moses, don't use an offensive word. Maybe we won't be using the lichen green, ladies. Yeah. Let us just unstick our pot. My bad, I must have got paint underneath it at some point. Let's see. And otherwise we'll bail out and not bother. We'll just add some white. Let's see if we can, because gee, that's not going to open. Right, just bear with while we get an alternative pale green from the supply, because we know we have a colour that is called Nimbus, she says, and I know I've got about 3 tons of the flipping stuff, so no. Well, that's Thorn. Oh dear, right. When you want a colour, can you not find it? Right. Let's go for vintage green then instead. And so this is an acrylic paint matte, and that's just going to allow me to, there we are, have some variations. There we are. Good. And then I shall get the other paintbrush one open sooner or later. So there we are. That will be that cleaned. We might just give these a little bit of a blast in a minute. And I'm going to deliberately keep these one through the swirls, but I'm going to do them. I've got 2 different leaf styles on these projects, so we'll separate them out, and I'm going to leave the swirls in the green as well. So there we are. And because it's been quite warm in the UK today, I'm now cooking, but my primer has not quite dried yet, so I'm just going to need the fan heater on for a little bit longer whilst it does. So there we are. There we are. It's really good to have, I think, in your stash a good collection of different shades of green, because yeah, particularly if you like floral elements, yeah, purely because nature isn't just one colour, is it? There we are. Let's just give that a little bit of a wipe. There we are. So, yeah. Hopefully, we're just going to spend this time doing the painting. because actually I think it's sometimes really important to see a whole project from end to end, rather than necessarily seeing stuff part finished, if that makes sense, ladies. Sunny this morning, but you've had rain. Yes, Sarah, as I went live this evening, the rain started, but it has now stopped, which is a blessing, because otherwise it can sound a bit like a drum in my craft room, which is an interesting sound for lives, but yeah, it's just part of life. Now, you could do some of these swirly elements in a different colour, metallic, but we'll go for the simple approach, and then we can add some highlighting with some wax. We're going to add some low lighting with an antiquing gel, and then we'll add the highlights with wax to mix it up a little bit. There we are. As I say, there's definitely two different types of leaf greenery on these. Oh, bless him, Joan. I hope it settles. Is he on? Well, I'm sure he will be on medicines for it if he's got AF. And I'm sure it's not very pleasant for him with his feeling like his heart's running away. It's not, I don't think it's ever very nice to have that. Good evening from Iona. I'm sorry, I cannot say your name. I haven't got a clue. Annie, could you, if you're still online, will you tell me the English version of the lovely Greek name with all the Greek characters? Because I cannot say, I just can't pronounce that in any way, shape or form. And I don't like being rude and not acknowledging people properly. I'm assuming there is a translation in English that will work, that will help me out for that. Good evening, Joe. Welcome. Thank you very much for supporting me this evening on this live. It's so much appreciated. Much appreciated. There we are. We'll just carry on. My name is Leftericus. So is the Lefteris your first name or your second name? Your Christian name, as we would say in the UK, or your given name, or your surname, the second name? Thank you for telling me. It's lovely to, and as I say, one of the joys of being able to, doing Facebook Lives is that we meet people from all around the world, and it's just a joy to be able to work with and see the works of other creatives, because many of us don't have access to someone that we can craft along with. I'm very, very fortunate. I have a fabulous friend who lives about an hour away, and we regularly craft together. Thank you, Joe. Much appreciated. There we are. So, but we just have to plough our way through. It's always, when I'm working out with projects for the lives, I look at them and think that'll be simple enough. But then actually, the project itself is not difficult. And then trying to work out whether it's a project that's going to be achievable in an hour, well, that sort of happens, but sort of doesn't happen. And having something that I think is effective isn't always possible just to do that in a short period of time. You just have to, I don't like the idea of compromising a project for the sake of that. Though I could, if people prefer, going forward, do some of the painting up front, particularly when I've got multiple elements like that, because I do appreciate that actually watching someone paint a significant number of the similar type of mould might be just a tad boring. Who knows? You're welcome to feedback. It won't be an hour, Joe. It'll definitely be longer than an hour. We're given sort of a guideline, but we're not by the lovely team at Pentacolor, but we're not actively pleased to stick to it. I think they might raise their eyebrows if we went on for 4, 5, 6 hours, but yeah, but globally we're not actively pleased for our lives, which is lovely. I might need some more of that thorn paint out. So there we are. We'll just carry on quite happily. Soothing and relaxing. Cool. I think when you're layering products, which of course is what mixed media artists do, it just takes time, doesn't it, to do that and to get a good result. I've just got some overspill of my bonding primer that I've just pulled off the edges, because I can get under it. Once it's on the surface, it doesn't chip off though. There we are. Let's get rid of that bit of white so that doesn't stick on there and that doesn't stick on there. Let's get out. Thank you. That's lovely. Right, let's just give that a little bit of clean. Endeavour not to contaminate my pots. Pop a little bit more of that out. Creativity can't be rushed. Yeah, I think that you're probably right there, Renee. I think that creativity shouldn't be rushed. It should be about enjoying the process, shouldn't it? For me, it's always been my sanity time, my downtime from a very stressful job. And now it's definitely my sanity time. Yes, it does seem to take time. I think it's fair to let our crafty friends see that and not worry why they seem to take a long time when they may have seen us zipping along at speed. I think you're very right, Joe. I think you're very right. And it also, it allows people to actually have a think about whether they've got enough time to make a particular project, if they actually know that it's going to take them, a few hours to do. But I use a fast set resin, so the resin doesn't take forever to cure. And yes, I do always do that beforehand, but it is my only take on prep, is to have my molded pieces done, because otherwise it would take us a very long time to mold, make, paint, unmold, prime, and the rest of it. There we are. Oh, did I want that on there? No, I did not want that on there. There we are. So I'll just take that off that. The molds are beautiful. They're a really nice size. Really nice size. It's always difficult, isn't it? You should look at a mold and you think, is it going to be usable? How many uses am I going to get from a mold? It's a lot of money. Will I get my money's worth out of it? And I think my simple philosophy is, if I love it, then it will get used, and it might not get, it might get used once this year and once next year, but it will get used and loved. But I tend to go for molds that are have multiple uses. I will buy heavily themed molds for different times of the year, because I think it's important to to have the themed ones for those projects, hence the bunny. And a set of birds, birds in different sizes is also always going to be very usable, isn't it? So there we are. she says, getting sticky, icky, sticky fingers. We are going to swap to the other green in a minute for the second set of the flowers, of leaves, because there's two very distinctive different types of leaves on these pieces. I don't want to get green paint on my pretty flowers. Though having said that, in nature the green from the leaves always does spill onto the flowers. There we are. Right, now then, I think there is a long leaf in there. That should be this. Sorry for dropping you. And another long leaf in you. Let's just do the bigger component. So this particular element, there are 3 different sizes of this floral in the mold. The little one that I've just done, this one which is the medium, and then a giant, much bigger one. There we are. Right, excellent. Sometimes 3 sitting. Okay. Yeah. Lots of sittings. I keep freezing. I'll have to watch that. It's all right then. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because the internet provision around the world is all a bit sketchy, and it's never the same. It seems to vary too much. So I just need to clean my mitts of that green, because otherwise I'm going to have green that I don't want on pieces where I don't want it. Hi, Bee. Welcome, my darling. I hope work wasn't too stressful for you today. I know life can be, some of our jobs can be incredibly stressful. Right. Let's just give these a little blast before I pick up the next bit and then have them all mixing together. Hello, Maxine. Welcome, my darling. There we are. Just need to get these 2 dry. And of course, when you want something to dry quickly, it doesn't dry quickly, does it? Because that's just part of life and a pain in the neck, and just the reality of plastic. So I have a messy matte media paint pack below me, so that can help keep my desk a little bit cleaner than it often ends up. But whatever you do, I think there's always going to be a degree of self-love. I think so, my darling. I think so. I think that those mixing up your colours, getting your depth, and just gives you more detail. We are going to have to put some orange centres into these florals, though, because they're definitely not going to stay pinky purple. That one's got a big wet blob in the middle. Human shenanigans. Yeah, that's a good way of wording things. Yeah, humans can be very definitely difficult. Still see that. And the problem with using a heat gun to dry stuff is that it dries the top, which then goes matte, which is fine. But then you lift your heat gun away, and all the wet that's underneath comes back up to the surface. So you actually have to go through round things multiple times. Right, hopefully that will be sufficiently dry for us to at least do some of these leaves. I am doing Vasilis's class. my darling. So let's just mix some of these two colours in together. So the lovely Vasilis, who is one of the Pentart creative teams, is doing part 2 of a 3-part online class this evening that got slightly delayed because of ongoing health issues for him. But I can always watch it back on rewind. But here we are. Okay. So that's that one. So let's pick up these. So you can, as I say, we've got lots of different leaves now to sit here and just work our way around. And the different colours will make a difference on the finished piece. That's the reality of life. So we just have to do, and I've got a nice small brush. I'm going to be putting white into the depths anyway, so if I miss the very depths, it's not going to be a huge disaster. There we are. Is there? No, that's not a leaf. You see, you just have to work out what's the leaf and what's a petal. There we are. And bring out all the detail in as much as you can. So I never go for completely realistic, botanically correct or anatomically correct painting because, well, my painting skills aren't at that level, to be quite honest. But it doesn't mean that you can't still have something that you're happy with. Good night, my darling. You take care. I'm sorry you've had a difficult day at work, and I wish that tomorrow is a better day for you. Sleep well, and I hope that the weather at 4 o'clock in the morning is not too bad for your journey into work. And of course, with the Pentart Lives, they are always stored so that they're there for people to watch back at their leisure. I think that might be a little flower, but there we are. There we are. We'll just carry on. We will. There we are. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen so many. Maybe we shouldn't have chosen so many. But hey, we're started. We will finish. We will carry on. Because it will look, well, in my eyes, it will look fabulous at the end and be a lovely little home decor piece that can be hung if you want to, or could go on a wall if that's what you prefer. Because the options are endless, aren't they, for what we can do. You could just as easily add these mouldings around a box. That would work just as well. That's not got to leave. There we are. Oh, we might be getting there. Then we are going to have to give it another good blitz dry. We might have to sort out the bits that we've missed as well on the birds, but hey ho, we might not. We might just enjoy ourselves and relax and just, there we are. Then I have to think about what I'm going to do on my live on Sunday, which is going to be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon again, I think. So it leaves the morning free. Right. So we want to add, oh, thank you, Elizabeth, that's lovely. I will do. So we'll add a little bit of pink into there, because the bunny ears need a little bit of the pink in them. There we are. We'll redo that. Let me just... Hello, Mel. Welcome, my darling. Let's just add some bits more to those birds. Cool. Right. Okay. Right. So our bunny has at least one eye. So let's just paint the eye in white, and we can add in yeah, that's good. Let's find the one on the other side. There we are. Cool. Let's take that out the way. Let's mop that. Oops. Pop that over there. Sorry for singing. There we are. We'll pop that over there. Pop that over there. We need some orange in the centre of our flowers. The little details actually do make a big difference. So this is apricot. So it's a soft yellowy orange. Let me just give it a little bit of a mix. Yeah. Because I'm getting to the end of this pot. You can tell that it's a colour I use frequently when we get into that, because these pots are 100 ml, so they're bigger than the average pot. Right, so let us just knock off some of that. I'm just going to pop that down and add just into the centre of my florals, and I'm deliberately not picking them up because I'm going to smudge the greens, or smush the greens together. So by doing them on here, I can just add a little suggestion that the centres are more yellow than blues and purples, if that sort of makes sense. There we are. It won't take masses, but as Betty has just said, the little details are the things that make a difference overall. And you'll be delighted to know that the pieces that are drying on the floor where I put the primer on are pretty much there, which is also quite useful. So that one paint is still yeah, I think we often do, don't we? So that, I'm not going to go down the sides of that because that is definitely still wet at the sides. There we are. That one, there we are. So we've now got some yellowish, pale, soft colours in the centre. So let's just give that, actually, while we're doing that, we're just going to pop those as is on the floor in front of the heater whilst we grab. Let's move those over there. So there. So this is the piece that I added the brown, vintage brown to, and then added the one component crackle to, and most of that is dry. But there's just a stripe in the middle, or a strip in the middle that hasn't. So let me just give this a little blast. The birdcage is lovely, and I'm sure that there would be someone in the US who would have something very similar to it. Or if you just took a little picture and message whoever made your cut your MDF for you, they would be able to create something similar without too great a difficulty. So let's just get rid of that white stripe, because actually that won't, it won't crackle if I don't. Thank you, Beverly. So for those of you that are in the UK, the bird cage is from Mad Hatter's Laser Cut Designs. But as I say, I think there's lots of companies who will have a bird cage of some description that you can get hold of. And the joy of MDF, of course, is that you can have them in lots of sizes, and they're relatively inexpensive, aren't they? Now then, oh, she said, oh dear, that wasn't quite what you wanted to do, woman. Let's find there we are. So this is the part 2 of the cracking paint system, and I love these paints because they crack beautifully. Having said that, you watch and it won't now, because I'm still good. There we are. So I will often put my paints on with a dauber, and I'll get one effect. But for these, I tend to prefer to use a paintbrush. And you definitely, again, don't want to overwork it, because you will disturb the layer underneath. There we are. And I don't mind it being a little bit variegated. We might add a bit more onto there. Hello, hello from Norway. I think Elizabeth is online, who's also in Norway. It would be lovely. So we're just going to soften the brown so it's not. There we are. So as I say, this is the cracking paint system. If you haven't got it or can't get hold of it, use the universal, the one component crackle, paint underneath, add the one component crackle, and then paint once that is dried, add the next one over the top. There we are. That will give. Now some areas I didn't cover all of this piece deliberately with the crackle, so I know that some of this part will crackle and some of it will not. So there we are. Let's hope that this will now crackle. There's never any. The crackle gods are going to be friendly. Yes, the crackle gods are going to be friendly tonight. So let me lift this up. Okay. There we are. So if I turn it like this and pop this at an angle, hopefully, there we are. You can see the crackle appearing. So each of the crackle meat products from Penta has a slightly different effect. We just need to do this. The other pieces are then drying. And we can add some paper to the inside of here. PM who, darling? Did you PM me? If so, I apologise. I must have missed it completely, my darling. I will have a look after the live if it was me that's missed it. I would hate for anyone to think that I was rude and ignoring them. Yeah. So this yeah. So if I lift this up, this is uncrackled here in this edge, and then over here is where it's been dried. I've got some big blob of wet paint there, so let me dry that. And this is a crackle where if you vary the thickness of what you put on the top, you get slightly different sizes and depths of your crackle. Good evening, Faith. Welcome, my darling. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. It is lovely to see so many people online. It's taken a long time for me to move from a handful of people watching to the numbers that are watching nowadays, and it is so appreciated, people giving up their time to see what I'm up to. Hopefully I inspire, hopefully you learn something from what I'm doing, and the other thing I hope is it makes you get your products out of the bottles and onto your projects, because pastes and mediums dry out with time, and so it's a good idea if you've got them to use them within a reasonable time frame. Most of the Pentacolor stuff will last a good year plus post opening, and some of them I've had open for an awful lot longer. So there we are. Cool. So let's just pop that on the floor, pop that over there. I'm going to give this mucky mess a clean, because that's what I want to do. There we are. I think I'll move that. I think that's very true, Betty. I think it's just not possible to watch every live that's produced. I think you have to cherry pick what you can watch and what you can't. And I think replays are fabulous because they allow us to access things, particularly when there are multiple lives that you might want to watch at the same time. And I don't know about you, but it's not very easy to keep track by flipping between two people's live activities simultaneously. The brain you'll end up with a bit confused by doing that. Very good. So I'm assuming, Beverly, that is for a DT sample for Dawn Bibby, who stocks Pentart mediums in her shop. And I think has a new collection coming to TV at some point. There we are. Cool. Okay, she says. Right, let's clear my mucky mitts now, because I'm going to pick up paper. And if I don't clear my mucky mitts, I'm going to end up with paint all over my paper, aren't I? Because that is just the law. Right. Cool. So we now have a piece of paper which we can now chop to size. Should we have it that way? Should we have it that way? I think we're going to go that way down. So let's see what we want to about there. Okay, she says, I knew I was going to end up with paint everywhere because that is guaranteed. And this doesn't have to be terribly precise at this point in time. I don't want the scorer. I do want that because we're going to be covering the edges anyway, and some of it is going to be. So as long as I cover the bits that I need to be covered, I definitely do want that in the center of here. So this is how my brain works, ladies. Right, excellent. So then we can slice off a bit of that, and that will give me a piece to watch. Hello, Shaz. Welcome, my darling. Thank you very much for joining me. There we are. And let's just chop that, and then we'll be able to glue this into place, and then once it's dry, we'll be able to add some extras. Let's get rid of that. Pop that over there. Note to self, don't put the paper on top of your baby wipes. So I want this up this way because text does have a side, and I am just going to give this a little spray with some water, and I have some decoupage glue to add to here. So let's take a suitably manky brush, add this onto here, we are. There we are. Pop that into there. Stick that onto there. Give it a little bit of a press down, preferably with something clean, not the mucky cloth that I'm just about to pick up. Squash out all of the air bubbles. There we are. Now, this is a case of do as I say, not do as I do. I'm going to get away with this because the edges are going to be covered. There we are. So, but generally, you are definitely better off when you're cutting to let your paper dry, your glue dry before you do things. So there we are. That can go onto there. That can go onto there. There we are. And we're going to pop that onto there. And we'll add some brown into the top of here, which I knew I was going to need to do. And because I'm not intending adding extra layers on top of here, I actually don't need to seal this in today. Whereas, of course, normally I would do. So, Betty, the background is a piece of paper from Stamperia, and it's from the Precious collection. So let's just add that little bit of brown onto there. That can go in there. Right, let's put that up over there. Let's just have a mop of some of that loose wet paint that's on there, where it's come through onto the back of here. Doesn't really matter. There we are. Now then, we have my go-to glue for adding things, which this is the Pentart Express glue, she says. And now we need to take something, a pokey tool, and stick it in it to get it working. There we are. It's going to be one of them days, isn't it? It's going to be one of those days. We're just okay. I will regret this, ladies, later on when it squidges every which way. And it'll be my bad for having put the lid on without having tapped it down and got rid of the glue from the inside of the spout before doing it. So the joy of the Express glue is, as it says on the tin, really, it glues quickly. It's got quite a low water count. Yeah, having chopped off the end, I can't tell you it's got a fine applicator point, but it does until you go chopping bits off it. There we are. And I'm using this because I'm sticking MDF, which is relatively light, to paper. And it's the flat surfaces to flat surfaces, so it will work quite nicely for me. There we are. I'm very well, Sarah, thank you. Pokey tool, yeah, absolutely. Pokey tools are the lifesaver of every crafter. There we are. So let's pop that onto there. That can go over there. Look. Let's line that up, she says. And then she spridged the glue every which way because she didn't line it up very well. And PVA glues have a habit of drying shiny. So I'm just going to wipe off the extra where I smeared it, because that was my bad, because I don't want the shine. There we are. Give that a little squash down and that will be fine. Right, excellent. We are going to be a while, aren't we? I do apologise, ladies. This is definitely my bad tonight. So, the bunnies definitely need a little bit of white adding to them. There is no getting around that, she says. dropping a pot into it. So there we are. Let's just give these a little coat. You think, what on earth are you doing? What are you? Yeah. Those of you that know me will have known that I've had the same pot of that for the whole time I have, well, since the products came out. And this is a, you can finish it another time. No, Betty, it's okay, darling. That's not what I will finish, and I will apologize to there we are. So we're not going to be forever. Oops, that paint is still wet. It'll be an interesting texture. There we are. She says. There we are. We'll just add a little bit of detail into these. I'm going to have to give some of these a little bit of a blast, I think. There we are, but there we are. So I like the effects that you get then by adding the layering in. It just makes such a difference. Such a difference. We are at a reasonable stage, actually, to be fair. Mental note to myself, take on a smaller project next time, woman. But there you are. So the antiquing gel goes on. Once it's dry, it is permanent. So you do need to wipe it off reasonably quickly. But it just will make such a huge difference to the overall effect of your pieces. Here we are. It is, we're not far off actually just being able to pop the places into place and assemble it. So there we are. So we don't want these to dry too much. And I think I need to get a clean wipe because I've now got too much gunk on that one. There we are. And what I will do is I will lay these into place rather than gluing it all down. So I'll show you where I'm going to go with it, pop them all into place. So you can see where we're up to. There we are. Oh, she says. See, rushing is never good, is it? Take 3 steps forward and 2 backwards when you try and rush things. There we are. Thank you, Betty. The antiquing gels do make a big difference to the things, and because they're water-based, they are, I think, perhaps they're more environmentally friendly for starters than using waxes that are petrochemical based, although having said that, some of them are beeswax based, which is maybe also not very kind to the poor bees that supply the wax. There we are. And some of these would benefit from a little bit of gold wax, but again will be an add-on later. There we are. Right, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. There we are. Retrieve the lid from the bin and employ the third hand, aka the mouth, for holding stuff. Right, eeny, meeny, miny. So, lovely. So we are going to have one there, one there, I'm going to let these dry before I glue them into place. One here, one here. Aha. So that is going to go into there. And then we're going to have 1, 2, we'll go there, 3, 4. That makes sense. We will add a little bit of dry brushing onto these. That does need to be done because it's too now, so that you can see what's going on. Let's just grab an appropriately cream crackered brush. That's very wet. Let's get most of that off. Just add a little bit of white onto there, not too much. I want a shabby effect. So we're going to have spring time. The birds will sit nicely onto here. Oops, she says. There we are. The 2 little ones are going to cover where those are broken and pop there. We are going to have Mr. Rabbit sitting here. Mr. Rabbit sitting there. And then we're going to pop some of these into here. So that's going to sit down, that's going to sit down. They're going to sit there, tucked into there, with this little piece tucked here. So we're going to pop it together, comme ça. And we've got some extra bits if we want to add. There is actually space to pop these into here to complete the frame if you want to. So I will off camera add a little bit of wax, and I will glue all of those down with my beloved she says heavy body gel matte, but I will add a little bit of detail when these are dry. So I'm going to add some black dots in for the eyes, and a little bit of gold wax onto those pieces. So, but I need everything to dry before I pick everything up to do that. So that is our make from tonight, ladies. I do hope it's been useful and that you've enjoyed watching me create. I think I might just shovel that up just a little bit higher, just to give those poor birdies, there we are, and the rabbits a little bit more space. So tomorrow I will add the wax, glue those down in the positions that they are now, and then hopefully we'll photograph it and pop it up onto social media, and I will link the live stream into that post when I do so. So take care, ladies, enjoy the rest of your evening and stay safe with whatever you're up to. Bye.